Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's us, the Humble Associates, with our guest. More on that later. And welcome to the Leadership Development webinar. It's lovely to have all of you. Let us know where you're coming from. Where is it that your base is and you're watching us from? And it's myself, TK. Here's Arif, and we've got a special guest, Gary. So Gary, lovely to see you. Today we'll be talking about how to hire amazing leaders and discover proven recruitment strategies. And Gary knows a thing or two about it. So Gary, a couple of words about yourself.
Hey Arif, yes, I am, and TK, I am a recruiter that's been recruiting for the best part of, I'd say, 23 years now. I've worked in the corporate game for quite some time. But it's just gone silent, by the way. But I launched my own bit. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're listening to you, Gary. Yes,
yeah, great. Okay. But yeah, I launched my own business in the back end of the pandemic to try and fast track the recruitment process by conducting a number of video interviews and building video shortlists for clients. And it's something that's been really successful, just giving a bit more. And I work within that sort of project leadership type of environment. So yeah, a recruiter from a corporate world, but with now a bit more of a modern approach and a nice sort of boutique agency feel.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gary. And, you've introduced yourself. Our viewers and listeners know us quite well, but we're Humble Associates, or at least the co-founders of Humble Associates. There's more of us. And we're a leadership development consultancy. But we'd love to know more about yourselves. So who are you? And where do you come from? There's an easy way to answer this question, which is all about with a single letter. So Arif, how does that work?
That's right, everyone. Just simply type the letter that represents who you are in the chat box on LinkedIn and hit enter, and then we'll get an idea of what you do, whether you're L&D or HR person, a leader yourself, or you're a combination of all of the above. Then simply put the right letter combination, hit the enter button, and we'll say hello to you on the comments. I'm trying to monitor the comments as they come in.
So Arif is our comment person, I'm the button person, and Gary is our wonderful guest. So you can obviously connect all the letters together, but let's talk about our first question, which is, why is it so important? Why do you need to hire great leaders? Like, what is it about leaders that make them such important hires? Gary, from your experience, why do you think it is the case?
Well, I'm going to talk here about maybe people that I've worked with. And I've been very fortunate that I've worked with some incredible leaders. One in particular actually was my last boss, actually, a guy called Rob Malaband. And, he had people in his team that would run through brick walls for him. I was one of them. He had a very inspiring and he was a good storyteller as well. He was great at really getting people on board. So not only did he sort of make good, effective decisions, but he also fostered a really good sort of workplace culture. And I think that's really important, is that, you can not only can you inspire and motivate people and sort of drive that innovation and growth forward, but you can also sort of foster that productive workplace where people want to go to and feel like they're a part of the team rather than just a number. You feel like you're actually useful in what you do, and you're looking forward to going to work on a Monday morning, rather than having the Sunday night blues and stuff like that, thinking, oh no, work's around the corner. It's, for me, the culture and the fit is really important.
And I think, it's the same for us, right? We do believe that leaders are the ones that create the culture. So getting the right leader that can create the culture by them being the person you're really looking for is a tremendous responsibility, and it's tremendously important. Arif, anything to add on that?
No, it's great to hear that lovely story, Gary. I think it's really nice how the human element of that leader that you look up to, you respect, and you valued their leadership style, I think that's critical to the success of any leader, in my view. We need more of that, and I think hiring for that type of fit or hiring for that type of attitude is quite crucial. We'll probably talk more about that, I think, and get your thoughts on how we can do some of that. I think it's really interesting to speak to you about that today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt, but I think one more point on that would be is a good leader is someone that can trust you, that will actually sometimes let you fail. And allow you to learn from their mistakes and actually, okay, it's not a failure. How are we going to put it right better next time?
All right. Yeah.
You know, so actually having the confidence in you to allow you not to be perfect first time. And not make a mockery of you, you know, but then celebrate the win. You know, make sure you celebrate them wins.
And that's quite important for us too. And you know, we've talked, and you know, ourselves when we train leaders, we help them develop certain qualities. We do our best to help them to have skills to reflect. To not to be afraid to make mistakes, things that you talk about, and also create psychological safety and test and learn. Now, as we're doing that, because we do believe this is how a high performance leader should behave, it would be actually great if leaders came into the organization already having these things. So Gary, if there's a situation that, you know, I'm a hiring manager in the organization, and I said, you know, I want a sales manager that would have these attributes. How would you look for one? What would you look to see in their CVs when you're talking to them to see if this would be a right candidate?
Well, for me, it's more about the CV. You know, there may be things that are going to be written in the CV which are going to be really useful, but you're not really going to get to know that until you actually either see the person, which could be via a video summary if they've conducted it, or at the initial telephone or likely video interview. And I think that's the key bit. You know, if you're looking for somebody, a good leader, for me, I believe you need somebody that's got great emotional intelligence, you know, cracking communication skills. You know, for me, that them two things are probably the most important things. Obviously, you need to look for somebody that is quite driven. So understanding what turns them on, what's the things that gets them ticking. See whether it matches as well. You know, you've got your company values, you've got your own personal values. What is the job search? What is the leader's values as well? Are they aligned? Are we getting somebody who's a I person, or is it a we person? Depends what you need. You know, you could bring somebody in that on paper is great, but in personality is just going to shake the boat a little bit too much.
I wonder, it's really interesting because I think I'd love to understand in terms of the process when you're working with clients, with organizations who give you that kind of spec and say, can you, Gary, go and find us someone who fits these criteria, right?
Yeah.
And say it covers some of the stuff we're talking about here. But so how do you make that process as smooth as possible so that your clients as well know what to expect, and you know what you're searching for, and then you're able to, you know, filter that out? That must be a bit of a scientific process, or is it a lot of gut feel? How do you do that?
Stories,
There's a lot of gut feel to it, to be honest. For instance, I'm recruiting at the moment for a business change manager role,
right?
And unfortunately, because of the market conditions at the moment, I've been inundated with candidates that are sending through their CVs. Now, the key bit is finding out exactly the full brief. You know, what is it that the client needs?
Right. Yeah.
You know, what is it that what's their personality like? What's the environment they're going to go into?
Yeah.
If it's a what's the person's hobbies, interests? You know, is there a match? Is there a similar ground here? It's key to find out what the project entails, but also as well what the team environment is like. You know, because if you've got somebody that's maybe all their career work is a change manager, but has just worked in a council, for instance, it could be quite a slow pace. and but you're hiring into maybe a bank or something which is highly processed, highly driven, highly stressful, that person probably isn't going to meet the demand. So it's trying to find that balance of somebody who can, sort of meet the pace or the environment of where you're going to be putting them into.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I suppose that's it. It's almost like matchmaking, isn't it?
Yeah,
you're doing the dating kind of thing of finding.
It is.
Yeah.
I've got some CVs up here, and I always look at CV and think, oh, they look great, and then sometimes you speak to them and you think, no, I can't put
you don't
them
match
across for it, or sometimes the candidate may be. I've been brave enough sometimes to say to the client, we've got this short list of candidates, and I know that you're really interested in candidate A, but I think candidate B and C is more relevant to you, and these are maybe the reasons why. And maybe give some examples as to what it's been like communicating with them over the past sort of week or two. So without being biased or anything like that, my job is to get the best candidate into the role, the best leader into that position.
Are they also priorities for your clients? Do you think organizations are prioritizing these things as well? Or is there a lack of that happening?
I think, well, I don't think I know. When companies put in too many processes into their recruitment process, it falls down. So you mentioned there like psychological safeties and stuff like that, but they could be like assessments and stuff like that. For me, I think we're gonna come onto it in a bit anyway. But if you can try and make that first impression as best as possible, and as smooth as possible, it's going to help you get the very best talent in the market.
So that's an interesting one, and actually, a very important summary. But the question is, what happens on the other side? How is it that when you look at the candidate himself, right, during the recruitment process, if you want a leader to really, and now there's an abundance of candidates, but it won't hopefully always be the case, how do you make it a good experience for them so they know that there's the organization they want to join?
I think you've got to really tailor each position, each role. If you can, some of the best recruitment processes that I've been through on a permanent side, this is where the client, the hiring manager, has actually recorded video. I've had a video conversation and recorded it and said, so Mohammed, please, can you just talk me through a little bit about the business and who you are and what you do and where this role is going to fit. So I actually conduct an interview with that person who is hiring, and then I can send it across to the job searchers, and they can understand a little bit more about who the business is before they've even been selected for interview. They understand it. If they do get selected, they've obviously got to know Mohammed a little bit from that very short video. That they've got to know a little bit about the business, and they can just see that they're in a slightly different business that conducts their recruitment process in an innovative way, and they can it's competitive against other companies that are actually maybe recruiting at the moment. So for me, it's really important that you tailor that approach, and you make the job searcher, the leader, feel as important as possible, and not just just one of 50 candidates. You've really got to, this is somebody that's going to be in your business, and it could be someone who's going to be at a top level. Make them feel as wanted as possible.
So that's a good one. And Arif, like for instance, when you've been hired, as a leader, what was important for you when you were going through this process?
Well, I was going to say, I think that point about being valued, being considered as important as within that process, I think I was going to ask is, how do you deal with candidates who probably want to get more insight as to the working environment, maybe want to go spend time with that potential team to understand how it's working? Is that something that organizations accommodate, do you think, or should they accommodate more? Because I think if you're going into that kind of senior position, you want to maybe get a taster of what is it going to be like. I think go on, Gary. Yeah, what do you think?
Absolutely. Bringing people in to your business is important two ways. So you've got to make sure that the leader is going to enjoy the culture environment. You don't want to make the hire twice because it's going to be very expensive.
Yeah.
So bringing them in, and actually whether it's on a group team session, or whether you can get people into the office for a coffee or a meal out, absolutely, build that relationship, make sure it's all right. But again, what I will say though is move quickly. Don't let that stall the process of actually offering the candidate. The candidate wants to move quickly. They want the process to be slick. They want feedback throughout the process. And they don't want curveballs at the last minute as well. So they do not want to be applying for a position, let's say at 80K, and being very honest on their CV that they're looking for 80K, and then be offered a salary of 70 at the very last minute. We've got to be all on the same page. You know what it is. That's where we're at. Because as soon as you offer 70, 75K, you're damaging that relationship from the very start. That you're going into it like, I've just been lowballed, and nobody likes to be lowballed. It then worries you. Well, what they're going to be like when my budget responsibility? Are they going to chip away at that? Is this a sign of things to come?
Yeah, good point. It is about managing expectations. I do like the comms bit, because there's nothing worse than, you go through, say, a round of interviews or whatever, and then you're waiting a day, 2 days, nothing, no feedback coming, and then in the meantime you might be thinking all sorts of things. Are they interested? They're just ghosting me. You might have another process going with another.
These situations, don't we?
That kind of stuff. So it's not easy.
And when talking about red flags, right? I'm wondering, Gary, when you think about it, you've talked about one, right? The organization changing or moving goalposts as in the middle of the process. But what is it that, this is from the perspective of the candidate. But when you see a leadership candidate, what are the red flags that would spook you off and be doubtful about if this is the right candidate?
If it's not the right candidate, I think the lack of clear vision. If you've been there, done it, and or a lack of strategic thinking. If you're someone who's proven, maybe by some of the lessons learned, because no leader will have. If they're just talking about all of the successes constantly, it's not like that. Reality is like how what have we learned from actually some of the projects which have failed, or how do you turn things into a success? I think somebody who's got poor communication and interpersonal skills, that's a major red flag, as is maybe a inconsistent career, maybe job hopped quite a lot. Like the CV maybe looks more contract, but it's actually a permanent candidate. They've moved too quickly. They're not. It could be seen as maybe not loyal and just money searching. Potentially a negative or a defensive attitude, both in about maybe how to get things delivered, but also maybe about past employers. Thinking, that's a red flag for me.
So that's an interesting one, right? And we've talked about how leaders need to self-reflect, and you've mentioned that being defensive about past experiences. So what kind of questions would help? Like if you're interviewing a leader or when you see them talking, what is it that exactly you're listening for when listening for that one? Because it's quite an interesting one.
On what point, sorry?
On the defensiveness in previous experiences.
On previous experiences, I think somebody that's constantly, is being, I guess the question that is going to be asked is, tell me about some of the positions where a project, for instance, hasn't gone to plan. And maybe some of the examples that the person would give, which would be a big red flag for me, would be, the team weren't very driven. They didn't, the budget got cut. Nice. These things just happen. It's life, but it's how do we, there's a reason why that team is not driven, and you're the leader. So the book lands with you. Unfortunately, the problem could be you as the leader.
So you're talking about humility, right? You want to see some humility. You want to see some openness and transparency about what actually happened, and I think that's a hard one, because if you're a candidate, there's always going to be that fear of how much do I really let on, because I don't want them to think that I'm useless, but at the same time I do need to be honest, because if you're holding things back, then people think things of you. So I don't know. Do you go through some kind of coaching for candidates,
it depends what the role is? Yeah, of course, because it's all about the match, of the culture. Right. If you are working with somebody or working with a company that needs somebody that is very positive and very there's a failing project, and they need to get a leader in that's going to deliver positive change.
Yeah.
Having somebody that is maybe talking about the negatives too much isn't going to fit that environment. So it's bringing somebody in that can actually deliver that positive change, can actually inspire, can actually bring people on board, and not somebody that's going to maybe drain the environment. We've all worked with drainers.
So, for instance, I'm just asking, from the point, we've talked a lot about from the point of view of the hiring manager of the organization, but from the point of view of the candidate, if you're a leader that, wants a new wonderful position, what are the red flags in the recruitment process you should be maybe wary of? Arif, from your point of view, let's start with you. What would you be wary of?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a recruiter. I've done this. I'm learning from Gary. This is fascinating. But I think some of what you said around that, if I was recruiting, then it would be like, how open they are and how honest they are about what's, when they're. Yeah, no, I think for a candidate, it's different. I think for a candidate, it's about, like I said, just knowing yourself and being true to yourself and being true to your own values. And if you're playing a role and then acting in a way that isn't true to yourself, I think you'll get caught out very quickly. So just be yourself as much as possible. And if you start building from that, you'll get trust very quickly with the recruiter and the team, who are the client hiring, either way. I think the difficulty is you don't want to appear too desperate for a role, but that's natural, because you're maybe in a market where there's so many people looking and you're one of 1,000. I think it's hard not to appear like that. But I don't know. It's not easy.
So Gary, what would you recommend to look for when it comes to red flags from the point of view of a candidate? Your tips
from a job search, I've made a couple of notes. So sorry if it looks like I'm reading off the screen here, but I made some. I'm just going to go through a couple of these. So, from the feedback that has been given from the job searcher, it's clear, it's not a good start to have an unclear job description from the get-go, or the expectations of the job description. It's certainly not a good flag to have a lack of transparency in the hiring process, or silence. Nobody likes silence. Nobody likes to be chasing. Nobody likes to be guessing what's going on. So the lack of transparency in the process, communication is massive. If you're a leader as well, I would expect to have access to key decision makers in the leadership team, and if they're being guarded, that would be a red flag for me. A high turnover within the organization. So a quick tenure. You can do the research yourself and see that on LinkedIn and other tools. As a recruiter, I've got access to a number of things that I can see. If I'm recruiting for them, it'll be one of the questions that I'll ask is, say, what's going on, guys? Your average tenure of your employee base is like 1.4 years. Whoa, what's going on here? Now, there could be an answer for that. It could be, we're very contractor driven, but if they're a permanent driven business, there's a problem there. Why are people moving on? And that could come into having a negative company reputation or poor employee reviews on Trustpilot or Glassdoor or some of the other things. Again, that's a red flag. If there's been no change of like senior leadership, CEO and stuff like that.
And the same problems persist. Yeah, that's a big one. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We'd definitely be recommending that people look for that. I think a lot of people, let's say, when the market does lift, and hopefully there are signs now that there's encouragement and movement in the marketplace. It's not to lowball, not look at this as an opportunity, because there's lots of people out of work at the moment and good leaders may be out of work at the moment. It's not to lowball it now, because you'll be remembered for it in the future. So make sure that you have a competitive salary and benefits package, rather than trying to squeeze the life out of people and maybe being a little bit sort of disingenuous about what the actual position is. And I think that's a good summary. Sadly, there are many people falling to this trap, but what I think is important, as you say, is this integrity. So just to wrap things up, we're actually doing a podcast ourselves, obviously, about leadership. So Arif, why should people listen to our podcast, and where is it to find us?
Yeah, well, as it says on the screen, you can get it on your favorite podcast player. Anywhere, any of those, or even some of the smaller ones. We're out there leading with agility. We've just kicked off season 2, which we're excited about. We've got a whole range of guests that we're talking to over the coming weeks, all manner of fields and disciplines, helping us to get to the bottom of, or getting a wider view of what agile leadership is all about. So do get onto your podcast player, search for Leading with Agility, and download the latest episode. Thank you very much.
So that's about us. But Gary, where can people find you? And if they really like, and I'm sure they did, all that you've said, how is it that they should get in touch with your agency, and what do you specialize in?
Yeah, so thank you very much for it as well. First of all, I really enjoyed the session. So the recruitment company name is Talent Today Limited, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Gary Wills, or you can just drop me an email. It's gary.wills@talenttoday.co.uk, and my business focus is within the IT project delivery world. So if you're looking to kick off a project, if you're needing to ramp up and you want an agency that is going to conduct the first stage interview process for you and build video shortlists and actually save you the work of having to do all the interviewing, then give me a shout. I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can book in my LinkedIn, you can book a Calendly. Even if you're not hiring at the moment and you're thinking about it in the next quarter, I'd love to have a chat with you.
And
Nice.
we're sure that, if your wonderful organization is growing, you will be hiring, and Gary is your guy. So Gary, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you for our wonderful viewers or people watching the recording. Thank you for your participation. It was lovely to have you here. And we're having the next webinar published later today, so stay with us, because we'll be getting back to L&D and the how do you create the right conditions for the return of investment, or R&D, but more on that later on. But for now, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.